Hi, welcome to day 4 of the Flying Froggies UK adventure. We're leaving Old Warden nice and early in the morning to avoid the extreme temperatures that have been forecast for later in the day. When flying in over 30-degree temperatures, it's essential to be very cautious with your mass and balance calculations, especially when you're taking off on grass with a slight crosswind, quite a lot of fuel and baggage in the back of the plane. Another consideration is clearance over the trees at the end of the runway. Today was a very important day. It was the most important flight of our entire trip, because this is what we based the whole adventure around. Our journey today takes us from Old Warden, flying northeast towards Weasenham Saint Peter, then onwards to the North Norfolk coast, Blakeney and Cromer, before finally landing at Norwich. East Anglia in general, and Norfolk in particular, are areas positively strewn with World War II airfields. Many of them are now disused, but still serve a purpose in aviation. They are particularly good visual reporting points. Stefan was navigating this leg, and it successfully pinpointed Weasenham Saint Peter, our first destination. Why Weasenham, I hear you asking yourselves? Well, this little village in the middle of the Norfolk countryside holds a special place in my heart. Situated just a couple of miles from the West Raynham Air Base, this is where my grandfather, Léonce, tragically lost his life on the 22nd of May, 1943. That's him on the right of the picture. Léonce was a wireless operator and air gunner flying for the 342 Lorraine Squadron, the Free French Squadron flying with the RAF, based at West Raynham. On the morning of the 22nd of May 1943, Léonce's crew, flying a Douglas Boston medium bomber, was flying as part of a 3-ship formation doing a low-level training exercise. For unknown reasons, they lost one of the engines and crashed into the trees at Weasenham, killing all 4 crew members on board. In fact, probably due to its proximity with the airbase, 3 aircraft came down in Weasenham during the Second World War. And a few years ago, in an act of extraordinary kindness and generosity, the villagers erected a memorial to the 3 crews. My good friend Jan Mathieson was on the ground with his camera, ready to capture the moment of our flypast as a tribute to these lost airmen. As we got closer to our destination, I couldn't help thinking about how this was probably the last landscape that Léonce ever saw. Of course, he would have been flying a lot lower than we were, but apart from that, very little has changed over the past 80 years. And then, all of a sudden, on our right, there it was. Léonce met and fell in love with my grandmother, Marjorie, who was a nurse at the local hospital near the base. They fell in love, they made my mum, and like so many others, they became part of the tragedy of the Second World War. As I said, West Raynham Air Base, which is where the 342 Lorraine Squadron was based, is just a couple of miles away from Weasenham. The squadron was the first made up of fully French crews to perform daring bombing missions on German emplacements in northern France. RAF West Raynham has been officially mothballed for years, but it still looks like the airbase it would have been during the Second World War. So after what was a very emotional flypast, we continued north towards the North Norfolk coast, flying over Blakeney Point and Cromer, where I spent a lot of my childhood years. I'll leave you with some images of this beautiful coastline, and I'll see you next time for the next part of the Flying Froggies adventure.